Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So, Earl Spence and Terence Crawford, looks like the fight's going to be on. I'm not going to get too excited until I see the press conference taking place. Other people aren't getting excited until they see these guys get in the ring. But the one thing I am excited about is just knowing that there's more information coming out about the fight and those limiting factors that were preventing them getting to this point. So, like a lot of us had assumed, just economics was the issue. And initially you had, what's coming out now. Earl Spence was saying he wanted the lion's share. Terence Crawford wasn't going for that. So they went back and forth. Neither one wanted to budge, right? And this isn't even their teams talking. These are the fighters. The fighters were kind of holding up a lot of the negotiations as far as the financial demands. It even got a little messy with location. Now, one thing we know is you can't host a fight like this in Omaha, okay? Fight like this, you could do it in Dallas, but something of this magnitude for an undisputed distinction, you got to put that in Vegas, okay? So they got beyond that, but then you still had the issue when these talks first really started bubbling, right? You had it where you don't want to insult a guy like Terence Crawford, all right? They were looking at trying to sort out like a $20 million deal for Spence, like a $15 million deal for Terence Crawford. But that's what they would have liked to have given them, but they just weren't sure they're going to be able to get there because of the event. They felt lacked some luster or enough luster to get them to the pay-per-view realm and to be able to sell the type of pay-per-view numbers they need to give each of those guys the money they want. And that is what was causing problems. Because I'm not, from what I'm understanding, from what I've read, Coppinger and some of these other guys, I think it's not just Crawford. Spence and Crawford both seem to have been, existing in a world where they felt they can come in there and pull $40 million a piece or $40 million and $30 million. Like, those numbers you just don't make $40 million for a boxing match, okay? So what happened is everything got sidelined. They set aside the negotiations. Nobody wanted to budge. And they sorted out the venue, but they just couldn't budge beyond the purse split. Now, my understanding is there were several purse splits thrown out there. One was an 80-20 for Spence, then 70-30 for Spence. And then Spence came out and said, hey, I was just joking about the purse split. Crawford was like, okay, but I want 70-30 in my favor. And you got to understand, they're both champions. They both have done a lot in boxing. Crawford has multiple weight divisions. But at the end of the day, neither one of them deserves no damn 70-30. But when you look at the belts, at welterweight, if anyone was going to get that, I'd say Spence. But what I thought was fair was 60-40 Spence. So what was proposed, and which to me, it could have worked, but neither was going for it, was a 40-40 purse split and then 20% going to the winner. And I think that may have been something that was kind of holding things up. They're like, you know what? I believe I can win. This is more from Spence. I believe I can win this fight. So we can do 40-40 and the winner get the other 20%. Crawford wasn't going for that. Crawford more or less wanted 50-50 or something in his favor, a 60-40. So who do you think gets involved? The slippery Al Haymon. The only man I know who's in violation of the Muhammad Ali Act and getting away with it because he has a brilliant mind. So what do you think happens? Al Haymon says, all right, you two fellas want to act your shoe size instead of acting like champions. Let Uncle Al get involved. So Al came in here and just started having discussions. You always hear when people talk, when these boxers talk about Al Haymon, that Al Haymon, when he comes in there, he does nothing but listen. He lets you talk, he hears everything, and then when Al Haymon talks to you, he makes you feel like everything's going to be all right. He makes you feel like everything's going to be all right. His goal is to make you satisfied, and he puts the fighter first and make sure they know they're going to get paid. And he had to come and get involved. Spence already knew what time it was, but Haymon had to get a one-on-one with Crawford to have those discussions and hear his concerns and talk about what the plan is. The plan of action will be for Terence Crawford. So we know that the economics really was a concern for Terence Crawford. So Haymon told him, this is kind of the way ahead here. It's going to be a lion's share for Spence. I believe it was like 60-40. Okay? I don't know about the pay-per-view and all that and how that's going to work itself out. But I'm going to come back to the pay-per-view in a second. 60-40. But then going into the rematch, right? Whoever wins in the rematch, they get the lion's share. So this may be a situation where over 2 fights, they each end up making 50%. It ends up being a 50-50 split, which is kind of, like I said, a slap in the face, because why would you do 60-40 if you're the champ and you have 3 belts, right? Crawford has 1, but it's a unique situation here. Both of these guys are equals. It should just do 50-50 and 50-50, but like a 60-40 the first fight, then you go into the next fight, and then the winner gets 60-40. So if Earl Spence is getting 60 and then he loses, now he goes to get 40, and Spence and Crawford gets to 60, that's basically a 50-50 split. But if they go into that second fight and Crawford gets like 70-30, well, that's totally different. But Al Haymon had to come and have that conversation with Terence Crawford. In addition to that, he talked to him about the pay-per-view model. People, look, these guys are playing chess. Al Haymon sat back. He didn't get involved with much of this. He let it, because it had flared up to a point. You know, the excitement for Spence and Crawford it kind of peaked, and then it went down. You know, ebb and flows, man. Kind of peaked and died down. Peaked and died down. So much so to where everyone was kind of like, you know what? We're not worried about Spence and Crawford. They're like, right when everyone turned their back to walk the opposite direction, Spence and Crawford said, yo! And everyone turned around. Like, we're going to make the fight. That's like having a girl, right? And she trying to get at you, and you ignoring her and shit. And she keep trying to get at you, and you ignore her, all right? But then she get tired of the crap, and she turn, and she walks away. So when you look over your shoulder, you see, whoa, she's leaving. And then you're like, yo. And then she either comes back or she doesn't. And in this case, you know, she ends up coming back. And that's kind of what happened here, man. A lot of the fans now are doing something that normally wouldn't happen. You know, all the fans are running back now in excitement to embrace what we thought we weren't going to get. And so the pay-per-view interest, and I think the pay-per-view sales now is probably going to be more than what it would have been had they initially agreed and would have had the fight going on in October. You know, so I tend to believe that maybe somebody over there was playing chess and just really allowing this to percolate, man, and gain more momentum and more steam. Because to be honest with you, timing couldn't be any better. Also, look at when they make the announcement with Canelo and Triple G. The fight being this weekend. So the Spence and Crawford fight is taking attention from Canelo and Triple G. Tyson Fury and AJ was announced this week. Spence and Crawford timed it just right. Now they're taking steam and attention away from that. So it's a perfect opportunity, man. I mean, to go ahead and make the announcement. Now, Terence Crawford more than likely is going to have a couple fights after Earl Spence still there with PBC. Because Al Haymon is all about taking care of fighters. And as my understanding from trying to piece together these like 25 different articles I read, that Al Haymon and Terence Crawford, of course they have the 2-fight deal here with Spence, but then he's going to be guaranteed a shot at Ugas and Thurman. But that's if he chooses. So they're giving Terence Crawford some options. So Terence Crawford is comfortable with his situation now. And again, Al Haymon, what was I calling Al Haymon, man? I had a name for Al Haymon, man. I forgot what I was calling him. But anyway, Al Haymon is the one who came and made all this happen. So Earl Spence is going to get the lion's share in the first fight. The second fight, the winner is going to take the lion's share. And I think the second fight, I don't know if it's going to be the same split as the first fight. I think it's going to be a little bit more. But this whole thing about a 40-40 purse split and 20% to the winner, that's not the way this was going, man. That's something that was thrown out there, and it was holding this up a little bit. It went from the extreme of 80-20, 70-30 Spence to the extreme of 80-20, 70-30 Crawford to talking 50-50. Still didn't want to agree to talking 40-40, 20% to the winner. Still didn't want to agree to all the talk stopping. And Al Haymon coming and getting involved and working out something which is a pretty sweet deal for Terence Crawford, and also articulating to him how pay-per-view numbers are going to probably be bigger. So what we're going to see is, will Spence get $20 million? Will Crawford get $15 million? I don't know. But if these pay-per-view sales can hit $1 million, Crawford and Spence are going to make more than that, okay? Because they're going to get a guarantee from Showtime. There's going to be a guarantee. Showtime has a budget, and there's a guarantee where they're going to guarantee each of them a certain amount. Then, depending on pay-per-view sales, ticket sales, etc., whatever the split is, they're going to get a portion of that. So these guys realistically could be making, it could be that 18 to 25 million for Spence, that like, 12, 13, upwards of like, 18, 19 million for Crawford. So they could get that money that they were looking for, but people are gonna have to come together and buy pay-per-view. Now, will they do that? I don't know. But we'll see what's happening, man. There was a lot of talks about mandatories, and I'm gonna tell you what really saved this fight too is Virgil Ortiz was all hurt and jacked up to where he couldn't even come in there, man, and fight Terence Crawford, because remember, man, he was hurt. And he ended up losing his a mandatory position as well. So Terence Crawford was able to dodge that bullet, but unfortunately he's just been inactive. So we're gonna see how things shape up, man. I'm looking forward to more articles on this. I'm looking forward to the press conference, and I really want to find out definitively what the hell is the financial situation, because everyone seems to have an opinion. But I'm not really sure any of that stuff is fact. But I do know for a fact, is Al Haymon got involved, and Al Haymon is the one who was able to talk to Terence Crawford and kind of give him a deal that was something Terence Crawford almost couldn't turn down. Because, Al Haymon is not the kind of guy who's going to be okay with losing out on an opportunity like this. Al Haymon's about the fighter. And I think Terence Crawford is realizing that. And Al Haymon's about just making everyone happy. So I think he devised a win-win approach to this. And now we are fortunate to be getting the good news that it looks like it's going to happen. But wet ink wet ink, wet signatures have not hit the contracts yet. Okay? And this is where we have problems. Terence Crawford was supposed to sign a contract before, and he pushed that back. A lot of things were agreed on. There were some things that he just wasn't happy with it. But then he has a lawyer, just like Spence said. They have good lawyers that's like, hey, this is how this is written. This is what this means. And nope, this is what we want. And that's why where we are now is just, cleaning up the language a bit to make it to where both other fighters are happy. But as far as who I think is going to win, look, I've always said this is a 50-50 fight. Both of them are the number ones. Whoever wins gets the undisputed distinction, and then the guy who loses is still the number one. Okay? The other guy bubbles up to the top. All right? You can't put the undisputed champion in a category with anyone else, especially for these guys, because these are really, no kidding, the number one and number two at welterweight. This isn't like Devin Haney, who's not the number one in his weight division, but he's got all the belts, so you got to give him his credit, right? But we can't look at Devin Haney and say he's the number one, because we know Tank can knock him out. So it is what it is. But these are no kidding the number ones. But I just don't know, man. I'm thinking Terence Crawford is going to, at some point, figure things out. But you better believe Earl Spence, Derrick James. It's just one of those things, man. I could say Spence, I could say Crawford, man. But if you force me to pick someone, I'm gonna say Spence is gonna be punching so much intelligently. So he's not reckless. His offense is his defense. He keeps his chin tucked. Spence does everything right. The problem is he throws a lot of shots. When you're punching, you're open, and a guy like Crawford is gonna get his shots up. But then Spence isn't a guy that throws 1 or 2 shots. Spence sometimes throws 4 or 5. So when Crawford thinks Spence is done punching and he gets ready to let a shot go, Spence is still punching. That's where he can catch Crawford. At the same time, when Spence is letting all those shots go, Crawford is sharp. He's a sniper, and he fights with his eyes. What I mean by that is his eyes are wide open. It's on the target. He's going to see those openings, and he can time it, and he can catch Spence, and he can hurt Spence. But this is really a 50-50 fight. But if you have to tell me to pick one, I'm telling you it's 50-50. But I would say at some point, I think Crawford catches him, counters him, and it gets interesting. So I think Crawford's, if you force me to pick, I'd pick Crawford. But I think it's a 50-50 fight. Can't wait to see it, man. Some more to come, but I'll be giving you guys updates probably every couple of days, especially as I get updates. And I had a guy come out here, man, and he hit me up. We were talking. He told me, man, he's like, this fight's going to happen. He's out of Dallas, man. He came down. I'm not too far from Dallas, and he was telling me that. And I think I said that in a video. But to see it all coming together, man, he had no reason to lie to me. That's why I said in the video, so it's on. But that being said, man, let's hope they can get these pay-per-view numbers together, get the ink to the contract, and the fight's right around the corner. My biggest concern is the promotion. How the hell do they can't send these guys to England, can't send them to New York, California, Miami. They can't do a world tour. They can't go Tribe Called Quest on this. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how they go about it, but they need to get to work like as of yesterday. That being said, y'all keep cool. Appreciate the support. Please subscribe, and as always, I'm in the breeze.